You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hello, world, and welcome to Tales from Hollywoodland, a veritable feast of movies, television, Broadway, showbiz stories, and even a little bit of news and gossip with Julian Schlossberg, Arthur E. Friedman, and Stephen J. Rubin. Today, we're looking at George Clooney, the reluctant movie star. And now, here's Steve.
Hi, guys. I'm really excited about today's show because I am an unadulterated Clooney fan. I think he has just been golden in so many facets. But I'm convinced that his breakout performance as Dr. Ross on ER was partially due to the fact he had a terrific haircut. If you look at his previous shows, and we all know that he did a number of shows, he played opposite Roseanne and he was on all these shows, but his hair didn't look as good. Wouldn't you agree that George has great hair?
Yes, he's got great hair, Steve. But I know what you mean. He got a haircut and made him look better. He definitely looked good with the mullet look.
Yeah, and they talk about Dr. Dreamy over there on that other show. This is our today. We're going to talk about George Clooney today, and George Clooney. There's many facets of his career. I want to talk about one of his first films that he does with Michelle Pfeiffer. It's called One Fine Day, which, by the way, was not a box office success. But if there ever was a movie that showed the charisma of one of our performers, it was One Fine Day. And of course, I'm talking about George. Do you guys know the film at all?
I do. I liked it a lot. To me, George Clooney is almost the last of the movie stars. He would have fit in the studio system in the 40s and 50s. There's something, he's the Cary Grant of our time. He's the guy. And you mentioned the hair. He's now playing Edward R. Murrow on stage, the Winter Garden Theater on Broadway. And he had to take his beautiful gray hair that he's had for a long time and darken it, and it's all black now. And he says that his wife and son, his kids, are falling over laughing at his blackened hair. And
how about the success of that show, Julian?
Unbelievable. Highest grossing show, I believe, in the history of Broadway. And it's only 7 shows. He's not even doing 8.
And so that includes musicals as well?
Includes musicals as well.
A play.
And you're talking in terms
$4 million a week. Unbelievable.
Julian, have you seen it?
I have not. 3.7 million a week ago. Unbelievable. And I would imagine, I'm going to take a guess, it's none of my business, but why not talk about it? I would guess he's making $370,000 a week, 10%, I would think. Therefore, making him the highest paid actor in the history of Broadway, if I'm right.
What was Hugh Jackman making in Music Man?
I'm sure the 10%, but nobody was doing 3.7 or 3.5 or 3.3 million. Nobody.
And they give them the 10% from $1, do they?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
That's a good living.
Yep.
Well,
yeah.
He's doing Good Night, Good Night, Good Luck. Good Luck and Good Night? Good Luck and Good Night.
No, Good Night and Good Luck.
Oh, Good Night and Good Luck. And he directed the original movie that was written, but he did not play Murrow in the movie. It was David Strathairn.
Yeah, he played Fred Friendly in the movie.
Who's the executive at CBS. So
That's right.
In this play, Julian, George is playing Murrow.
He is indeed. And he kind of bookends Murrow's speech. He starts out in tuxedo, does the speech, and then they go to the show, and then he ends it with that. And I don't particularly want to get into a lot of political things on the show, but it is showing what happens when a demigod becomes in power. And that's what happened with McCarthy and his henchman, Roy Cohn. And this is a warning for those who need the warning.
A cautionary tale. And the interesting thing there, too, is that that stuff took place more than 50 years ago. You're talking about Roy Cohn. Roy Cohn has had his hand on our world since 1950, would you say, Julian?
In the 50s,
So
absolutely.
75 years. And it's still out there. It's all over the place. He was quite a guy, Roy Cohn. We should probably do a show on him one day. But as far as George Clooney is concerned, one of the remarkable things to me about him is that he started really in the 70s. And his first TV appearance, his first show, was 1978. He'd been around for a long time. And he had a lot of odd jobs, including he was a chauffeur for his aunt, Rosie Clooney, my favorite girl singer. He chauffeured them around, and he would do whatever he'd have to do. But it took him 16 years to break through. And when he broke through, he became a star instantly. I'm a huge star.
Well, but that's the point. He didn't become a huge star, but when he finally did, as you say.
When he did, he broke through, right?
But listen, he did 18 pilots that didn't sell. 18. So, that's a hell of a track record of trying to make it in the business. But
Julian, you know that if you have 18 failed pilots, you lose your pilot's license.
Hey, can't fly. George Clooney is a movie star more than anything. He does resonate all over the world. His movies do business internationally. He's certainly bankable as a star.
Arthur, do you know that he tried out for the Cincinnati Reds?
No.
Yes.
I knew he was a basketball player. Yeah.
He was also a baseball player. He was very athletic in school. And he's, I guess using the old time art and cliche, he's a man's man. I mean, Clooney's the kind of guy you can talk about anything with. He would be one of the people I would say in my top 10 to have dinner with. I mean, he's definitely somebody who has opinions. He's married to a very, very strong activist who doesn't sit on her behind, but actually helps people, Amal Clooney. And now they have twin daughters, or is it twin sons? Twin daughters.
Behind the set of ER, they put up a hoop for George because he loved to play basketball. And I'm driving by one day and I stopped and we shot hoops together. He would also play on the court that was put together by Steve Spear, who's now the worldwide head of business affairs at Warner Brothers. And they played daily basketball games back there, tough games. Everybody gets their shorts and sneakers, and George goes down there too. He was a good basketball player. He could shoot.
Well, what Steve said is really important for any movie star, to be able to have both men and women want to be with you. That's the real sign of a movie star. Paul Newman, for example, had that, and there are very few. When you really count them, can't count them the way he was. Juliana Marley said when they were walking down, they shot a lot in Chicago. When they'd be walking down the street, women would literally, like they did with Harry Belafonte and others, rock stars, throw their underwear at him.
On the street? On the street, Julian?
On the street. Yeah. On the street where I did not live.
Yes. Yes.
But underwear, it isn't like a baseball. I mean, when you throw underwear at people, it doesn't go very far. They'd have to have really good arms.
Well, it's better than tomatoes.
George Clooney has made some hit movies. Apart from the fact that he became a big star in a television series, he went on to doing movies, and he played. He did a Batman, which he wasn't very fond of. Is that right, Steve? He was not happy with that. Yeah.
I mean, it made a little bit of money. It was not one of the big Batmans, but he got a lot of brickbats for some really silly things, like his what do you call it? His bodysuit had nipples on the bodysuit. And Mike, you remember that? You remember that?
Of course I do. It's interesting because Clooney always used to say, and he's so not beyond self-deprecation at all. And it's one of the things that I like about him. But he's the one he claimed, I'm the one who killed the Batman franchise.
Only for a little while.
Exactly, until Christopher Nolan took over.
That's right.
It was interesting too. But he played an amazing Bruce Wayne, but he was not a good Batman. I fully admit that.
But he was great in what they did by putting together Ocean's 11, not a remake of it, but just redoing it. They made a huge hit movie and made it a franchise series.
With the new one coming out very soon.
Yeah. And I have to say, by the way, I am a huge fan of the original Rat Pack's Ocean's 11. It was one of the first movies I ever remember. I went to Las Vegas. I've told the story many times, and I stood right under the Sands marquee, and there were those names, Frank Sinatra, Joey Bishop, Dean Martin. And then I saw Ocean's 11. So I had to be convinced that it was a good idea when Jerry Weintraub decided to make a remake. And it's terrific. I mean, look at the cast in Ocean's 11. Brad Pitt, Matt Damon, so many great actors. Carl Reiner.
Elliot Gould,
exactly. Jimmy Cahn's son, Scott Caan. It's a great movie. The sequels, the second one was not very good. It went to Europe. The third one was better, but it was kind of a repeat of the first one. So sequelitis got in. But Clooney, I know we use the term cool a lot in Hollywood. It's overused. I always refer to Steve McQueen as the king of cool. But George Clooney is our cool cat of today. He is definitely the cool actor. And with teaming him with Brad Pitt and Matt Damon and that whole group, that was the cool cast of the decade, definitely.
Did you see him in Monuments Men?
I'm not a big fan of Monuments Men. I thought that Monuments Men was a miss. I thought that if you don't know about Monuments Men, everybody, this is a movie based on fact that there was a unit of the U.S. Army that went into Germany or Europe to find the missing artwork that had been stolen by the Nazis. And they were the great thieves of history. And I thought, there were like 4 or 5 different stories going on at once, including the one with George in it. But it just got too, I just found it confusing, and not the dramatic flow was not great. What did you guys think?
I didn't like it at all. So I felt the same way you did. But what I was interested in was that when AMC first went on the air, the AMC channel, they had a host named Nick Clooney, and that was his father.
Right.
And his father was the host for many years on that channel, also had a certain amount of charm, but nobody has, I don't believe, as I said earlier, that anybody has the charm in the movies that this man has. Not one actor that I can think of. He's got it. He really has it more than any. And he also gives you that thing that he's almost winking. He knows he's having fun. He wants you to know he's having fun. It's a real talent to have it, and very few people do. It's like watching Billy Crystal come at the beginning of the Academy Awards. You can get, I don't care who you put up, nobody is going to equal to me the way Billy Crystal can come out and handle an audience with a different kind of charm. It's not this knockout, gorgeous guy, but he sure has the ability to just make it feel I'm having fun and you can have some too with me.
Well, I want to say this, that the truth of the matter is, I don't think George Clooney has made that many movies for a guy of his star caliber.
Well, I don't think he, like we said at the top of the show, I don't think he wants to be a movie star. I think, first of all, he started to direct a few years ago. He's a producer. He and his partner at Smokehouse Entertainment, they back a lot of movies. People forget he won an Oscar for producing. He won an Oscar for producing Argo, which was Ben Affleck's. Yeah.
And I believe he co-wrote good night and good luck.
Right. So he is definitely a triple or quadruple
Oh,
threat.
yeah. One of my favorite movies he directed was Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. That was
Tell us a little bit about that movie, Mike, because I've never seen it. I know it's the Chuck Barris story.
it's the story, that the rumor was that Chuck Barris was actually an undercover FBI agent, and he was basically, or the CIA, he was basically,
I think it was CIA, Mike. Yeah.
I think it was CIA, and he was working for George Clooney's character, and basically he was running undercover missions when he was doing the dating game, and that's
The
why.
dating game or the Gong Show?
No, he was doing he did the newlywed show, or the one of those, or the dating
Right.
game, and some of the dates they sent to like Berlin and stuff, and he would go on missions for the CIA while he was chaperoning, and it carried over into when he then took over for the Gong Show. Everyone thought he was full of crap because of it, but he wrote a book about it, and this is what it was based off of, that Clooney did, and it was a great story. And who was it? Sam
Rockwell.
Yeah, was the
Great
played
actor.
Barris, and he was amazing in the movie. I definitely would recommend it to see. It was a great performance.
I've actually heard some people refer to our government as the Gong Show. Let's get beyond that.
I have a friend in LA. His name is Barry Taff. He's one of the premier paranormal investigators in the world. He's investigated over 4,000 haunted houses. When he was at UCLA in the parapsychology lab, they used to do experiments in what they call remote viewing. And remote viewing is an ability to see things at great distance when you're not there. That became the basis of one of George's most interesting movies, The Men Who Stare at Goats.
Yes.
Which is an interesting movie. I mean, this actually takes it to the next step, showing the government, perhaps the CIA, involved. And Barry tells me that when he was giving his lectures at UCLA, there were always these guys in suits in the back of the room, and he was convinced that they were all U.S. intelligence community operatives.
Was the Men Who Stare at Goats by any chance the Coen brothers?
I don't.
Or one of them, Joel or Ethan?
It might have been. I know he's done work with them. Burn After Reading, he did with
Brother, Where Art Thou?
I know Brother, Where Art Thou, which is what he's really famous for. That, when a lot of people think of George Clooney in movies, they think of Oh Brother.
He said, I do the Batmans, I do the Ocean's 11s, I do them to make the movies I want to make. And that's what happens, because those movies make a fortune, and the movies we're talking about generally do not.
Has anybody seen Michael Clayton?
Oh, yeah, that's right. But before we get into that, The Men Who Stare at Goats from 2009 was directed by Clooney's partner, Grant Heslov. And it was not a Coen Brothers picture.
Not written by? No.
Not written by, no.
Yeah. So
But Michael,
talk about Michael Clayton, Steve.
Michael Clayton is the perfect George Clooney vehicle. It's interesting. George has quite a range. He can do goofball comedies where he literally looks like a goofball. Hail Caesar is one of them. I think that was a Coen Brothers movie.
Yes.
Then he can do deadly serious stuff. And I would say Michael Clayton is one of his most serious films. And it's a perfect role for him. He's a troubleshooter, a fixer, I guess they call him, in the Chicago. I think it is Chicago, in the Chicago world. Sidney Pollack is his boss.
Terrific movie. It was a terrific film.
Terrific movie, and he was nominated for Best Actor that year. I think he ended up losing to Daniel Day-Lewis in There Will Be Blood, but it's kind of a couple of days in the life of a fixer. The actor we lost recently, I'm trying to remember his name. He plays a lawyer who's investigating
Is it Tom? Was it
Wilkinson? Yes, Tom Wilkinson. There's a huge. The law firm is involved in a huge case. They're defending a big corporation that's accused of polluting and killing people. And Tilda Swinton, who I love, Tilda Swinton. She's such a character. She plays the attorney representing this company, and the relationship between her and the company, and then George. George is just in over his head. He's trying to open. He's just failed in opening a restaurant in the city, and he's in hock, and he needs money. He's a little bit desperate, and then he's trying to help his friend, the Tom Wilkinson character, who's about to be a huge whistleblower. And it's one of the best of, I would say it's my favorite George Clooney movie. What would you say, Julian?
I loved it. I thought it was a terrific film. I also liked that movie he did where they had to go around and fire people. Remember that? With the
Yes,
they were
Up in the Air.
Up in the Air. I thought that was really an interesting movie, and a great kind of love story, and also with the young girl as a trainee that he was teaching.
Right.
It was a very, very good film.
Mm.
I think no matter whether the films do commercial or not, he makes very good movies by and large.
Monuments Men, and Michael Clayton were successful at the box office. Hail Caesar is better known in the industry as The Catastrophe. That just was one of those things that didn't work. It wasn't his fault, but the picture just did not work. What about Syriana, George? What do you think of that?
Another big hit, and I think he was also nominated for an Oscar there as well. But Syriana was another really darkly serious movie that George was involved with. I mean, he's in the cast. He plays Bob Barnes. I remember being very much intrigued by it. Definitely.
Is there a great movie, guys, from the past that he wasn't in, that some other movie star was in, that he would have been perfect for? Let's say An Affair to Remember, the Cary Grant role, maybe?
I always thought of him. A friend of mine over at Paramount was talking about remaking Stalag 17, and I would think that in the William Holden role, he would have been a good Sefton. Definitely. He pops up in some war movies. He's in that movie, The Thin Red Line. He has a small, little, tiny part in The Thin Red Line. You mentioned Hail Caesar. That's Goofy George. That's kind of a Goofy George. I have to say, I prefer Serious George over Goofy George, but that's just me.
Well, but Goofy George was really Goofy Joel and Ethan. It was the movie. It didn't work.
Now, another very serious movie of his, I don't think he smiles much in the whole movie, is a European-produced movie called The American.
Yep.
I don't know if you know it.
Yep.
Really good.
Yep.
He plays essentially an assassin, a very, very experienced assassin who has to deal with somebody he's actually training another assassin. And it's a very sexy movie. He cavorts with some really beautiful women, but he's involved in a very dangerous mission and has almost, I wouldn't say a James Bond quality. There's nothing tongue-in-cheek about his character, but he's more of the Daniel Craig Bond, who's very deadly serious.
There's a lot of movie stars, actors, actresses, and you'll always hear the word, you'll many times hear the word, they're complicated. They're difficult. George Clooney's a good guy, and you only hear good things about him, really. He's a regular guy, playing basketball or whatever.
He walked away from ER. I mean, the show that made him, I think he only did 2 seasons of ER. I think he left. Isn't that right, Julian?
No, more than 2.
I think he did 5, Steve.
Did he do 5? Okay.
After 5, yeah. What was the movie that takes place in Hawaii, I think, where he's estranged from his wife? He's got kids, and he's trying
The Descendants.
The Descendants. That was I like that film a lot. I thought that was really good. Arthur, did that do business? I think it did.
It did art house business. We had the Gateway Theater at the time. We played it, and intelligent, upscale audience. We killed them with it. Very good movie. And the director of that movie, of course, is gone on to become successful. And his name, Steve, is the director Alexander Payne. Done some good stuff.
And just and I think that it was also a very honored picture.
Yes.
It won.
Yeah, and rightfully so. And one of the things that's interesting about Clooney, his even though it's self-deprecating humor, he'll play any kind of a role. He's not worried about the movie star protection that he can't play a guy who can be a loser or he can't play a guy who doesn't get the girl. He'll do any of those things. He's not worried, and that makes him different from almost every movie star I've encountered.
Oh, very much so. He even doesn't mind playing in kids' movies. He was in the what was it, the Spy Kids movies. I remember when my son was growing up and going, "Clooney's in this? What?" Surprised about that. Or he even did a Disney movie called Tomorrowland,
which I thought was a terrible movie.
Terrible. It was.
But I'll tell you a movie of his that just kicks it is Three Kings.
Oh, Three Kings is awesome.
Three Kings is awesome. I don't know how you make a good movie about the Iraq War. It's such a devastating war for so many aspects. But
remember that scene, Steve, when with all the iPhones and stuff, all the cell phones.
Oh my!
He calls his home. His wife's in the kitchen. What a scene! Who was the director of that?
That is the Mark Wahlberg moment. That was Wahlberg calls his wife.
Right, but the director of that film is
David O. Russell.
David O. Russell, absolutely. Silver Linings Playbook and all that.
Oh yeah, he directs very infrequently, but when he does, they're really good. And Three Kings is just one of those movies that appeals to everybody. I mean, it's a very interesting movie. You've seen it, Julian, right?
Actually, I didn't, Steve. I don't know.
You'd love it, Julian. You'd love it.
It's worth seeing. It's basically Clooney and Ice Cube and Mark Wahlberg play American soldiers. They hear that Saddam Hussein. This takes place at the very end of the first Iraqi war, after the U.S. has invaded and basically polished off the Iraqi army pretty quickly. They discover that there's something that's leading them to Saddam's gold, and somewhere in that warscape, that battle, all the destruction, there's a place where this gold is. So it's kind of as a touch of the Treasure of Sierra Madre, a little touch of Ocean's 11.
Kelly's Heroes.
Very much Kelly's Heroes. Thank you.
I want to say this, guys, for our listeners and for all of you. What makes a movie star, bottom line, is that their movies make money, do business. Good Night, Good Luck had a budget of only $7 million. In today's world for movies, that's like nothing. $7 million, and it took in $54.6 million. Now, studios, unfortunately, today are not, they're a little, we're looking for billions. We don't want that. It's too bad, because there's some of these great little stories like this one can be made for minor budgets and still turn big profit. And then the profit extends itself through the afterlife of DVDs, or in this case, video on demand and all that kind of stuff.
Well, on the one hand, Julian, a little sidetrack for a second. On the one hand, the studios are feeling the pressure of competition from the streamers and all the other forms of entertainment that have taken a lot of the sizzle away from the film business. So they feel the only way they can compete, it's almost a return to the 1950s when the studios were fighting the first battles with television taking over their audience. My question to you is, can we get back to telling stories, not just epic blockbusters? I mean...
Well, I'll say this. In the 50s, the studios, not sure what to do, decided to go CinemaScope, 3D, Cinerama, Cast of Thousands,
VistaVision,
stereo, anything that you couldn't watch on a television, that you had to go to a theater because it was big. And that way, I don't know right now what they can do, what they can fight back with, because as Arthur just points out, with a show like they don't even care that a film would make that kind of profit. It means nothing. They're shooting for the Grand Slam home run. They couldn't care less about a double. They don't care.
No, it's true. It's true.
It's sad. It's very sad. But it's one more thing in show business that is sad, especially when you're going for 17-year-old boys. If that's what you think is your audience, I hope we'll see a Kramer versus Kramer, but it'll have to be. I don't even know, Arthur. You'll tell me. Do they still have these Paramount Classics? These studios still have that offshoots that at one
Well,
point made
Sony
these
does.
kind of
Sony
movies?
has Sony Classics.
Well, Sony Classic. Michael is a friend of mine, Michael Barker. But I mean,
Universal, it's
yeah,
Focus.
they do. Well, that's good. Well, maybe
But
they'll
they're
do
looking
something.
more for really they're not looking for the Kramer versus Kramer, great if they could find it. They look for more of these things at the Cannes Film Festival, the various festivals, foreign films that are outstanding, and they're relegated to that kind of a thing. The missing ingredient, to answer your question, I think, Steve, is that the demographic that has been lost beyond COVID is people from, let's say, 40 or 35, 40 to 50 plus.
Yes.
We all discovered that you can watch these better quality movies on your television set in the comfort of your home. And you don't have to go into the car, go to the theater, go forget a parking, go to get a popcorn, stand in line. Who knows? Deal with people who are using cell phones. It's a great experience, the social experience of going to the movie theater. But I think people who are older, I think they're kind of lost. I don't know what the hell will bring them back.
Well,
really
certainly a Clooney is I find a stamp of approval. George generally doesn't get involved, whether he's a director, an actor, a producer, writer. He doesn't get involved in films that are crap. And I think that that's certainly a plus these days. Another one of his films, which would ride into the epic quality side and was, I think, a pretty big hit, was The Perfect Storm. Now, there's an epic true story.
It's a box office movie, and no problem. I mean, but clearly it was a movie, as was Ocean's 11 or 8 or 9. I mean, those are box office movie. Perfect Storm was box office, did not have anything to do with and was before COVID. Am I correct?
Yes. No, way
They came out
COVID.
afterwards with Twisters, but that became more for the teenagers and young adults. And that audience is there. They can get that audience if they got the right movie every time out of the box. The problem movie is Kramer versus Kramer, is When Harry Met Sally, is great, wonderful movies that we all love. That audience, I'm not saying it's gone forever. Nothing's forever. But right now it's gone.
Well, a lot of that audience, though, did go see Oh Brother, Where Art Thou because of word of mouth. It had a very small advertising budget.
Pre-COVID, wasn't it, Mike?
Oh, it was 2000. It was like, almost 20 years before.
Well, we know that the audience was there. I'm saying COVID, post-COVID, there's a problem. We all discovered the living room or the office or the bedroom or whatever, watching these movies on television with big screens, great sound. It's a problem. Let me ask all of us here: when's the last time we all went to the movie theater? Julian?
Can't remember.
Must
be at least. Steve? It must be at least 5 years.
Wow. And there's an intelligent moviegoer, Steve.
Friday night, I went to the Turner Classic Movies Film Festival in LA. It was Thursday night. I saw The Empire Strikes Back in the main theater at the Chinese. George Lucas introduced the film, being interviewed by Ben Mankiewicz. And I have to tell you that sitting in a packed movie house with a Star Wars movie with great sound was off the charts amazing. Off the charts. I mean, I've seen The Empire Strikes Back probably 30 times. And it was as fresh could be.
But Steve, because it's a theatrical event movie, no matter what. But you're also part of the industry, and you go to things like that. The average person does not. And we're talking about story-driven movies. That's what right now we're at.
It's true.
Story-driven movies.
And George usually gets involved in those. As a director, he's
would Michael Clayton do business today? Because it was a profitable movie when it came out.
I think the word of mouth on Michael Clayton would be good.
That means you're going to have to drag people out of the house who are 50 years old over.
That may
tough demographic to cut.
No, it's tough. It is very tough. Listen,
I have to take back something. I have seen a movie very recently at a movie theater, and it was called Amadeus. Amadeus, made in 1984, 41 years ago, is an extraordinary movie. Now, we all saw it and we all liked it, I'm sure. But 41 years ago was the last time I saw it. And I learned a lot about the movie business and about show business since then. I have to tell you, the sets, the costumes, the acting, the direction, the writing, it's a masterpiece. And I always thought it was a good movie. Please.
But it is a masterpiece. But how would it do today in the theaters?
Today it would go straight to HBO.
Well, yes, that's what it would be. And it would be huge.
I don't think they'd make it today unless
they'd make it for streaming.
Steve said, yes, right. But boy, what a film that is. But that was interesting to sit with an audience who was oohing and eyeing, and that's something you can't get at home. That's the one thing.
Well, you can't. No question about it. But you know what? You ever look at stuff on the streaming, like the quality stuff, Crown, Howard, what was I saying? Room with a View recently, an old movie on television. Boy, the intimacy of it is so great. It's tailor-made for streaming. The better films that we're talking about are made for you to watch at home.
Well, the day after I saw The Empire Strikes Back on the big screen, I got up early Friday morning and saw Thunderball on the big screen. And you know me with James Bond, and just seeing it, there's something about going to a packed movie house that's very visceral. And I think we all wouldn't mind having that experience again if it was for the right film. Certainly movies like Oppenheimer and Barbie and Wicked got people to come out for events. I don't know.
Oppenheimer became an event film. And yes, a lot of adults who normally don't go did go out to see it. It became an event without question.
Steve, I have a question to ask you as our expert on James Bond. Did they ever go after, as far as you know, George Clooney to play the role?
No, because the rule of thumb with James Bond, except for two odd cases, are that Bond must be played by a Commonwealth actor. British, Australian, Welsh, Irish, Scottish, etc. He's
Irish. He's Irish.
Well, he's got Irish blood in him, but he's an American through and through. And they actually cast James Gavin, who later became our ambassador to Mexico. John Gavin, our ambassador to Mexico, married to Constance Towers for many years. But they made a deal with Sean Connery to come back to play Diamonds Are Forever. And then James Brolin, of all people, who was married to Barbra Streisand, father of Josh Brolin, also got the role, but they ended up finding, I think, Timothy Dalton to play Bond for 2 movies.
But if there were an American, an Anglo James Bond, maybe called Joe Jones or something, in a similar kind of a role, Clooney would be perfect for that.
Perfect.
Well,
I could see actually Clooney being something like a Napoleon Solo type character from like Man from U.N.C.L.E. or something like that, more than a James Bond.
Right.
I thought of that because Steve uses the word tongue in cheek, and God knows that's what Bond is.
Julian, it was under the Daniel Craig stewardship since 2006. It's been pretty much serious, deadly serious, and even more deadly serious. Not a lot of tongue-in-cheek anymore. In fact, I don't know if Daniel Craig breaks a smile very often in that series.
I don't think he's a barrel of laughs. No.
Not a barrel of laughs. But
I didn't think he would succeed. Honest to God, I didn't think he was in the world of these guys who played Bond before him. I was wrong about that. He succeeded big time.
Oh yeah, we disparaged him. He was called the Blonde Bond.
Right.
Who's this guy? No, absolutely. But Clooney, I have to say, if you're going to see a Clooney movie playing an agent of some kind, go to see The American, because he is a gritty assassin. It's a very well-made movie. Very well movie.
Well, he plays the same type of character, similar in Syriana, too.
Right. But is he an assassin? He's not an assassin.
No, he's a spy.
He's a spy.
Yeah.
He's a spy. Yeah.
He almost gets blown up in that film.
I think he does at the very end.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, spoilers, by the way.
No spoilers. I was going to mention a movie. He has a brief role in, but he certainly adds star power to the Alfonso Cuarón film Gravity, which was a Sandra Bullock vehicle, pretty much. But Clooney's there as a fellow astronaut. Whenever he shows up, he adds weight. There's no question about it.
I want to go back to you mentioned before of him being involved as a producer in Argo. So if there were in the history of Hollywood, 100 years or more, if we took the 10 worst titles of all time, Argo would be in the top 3. Could be number 1. I mean, think of it. I remember when we played that in the theaters, and people would say, "What the hell does that mean?" Well, a title is supposed to have something going for it to explain that. Argo was a terrible title. They got away with a big hit, great movie. It overcame everything.
Well, nothing compares with Mel Brooks's Life Stinks. Worst title in the history of cinema.
And they said the movie stinks. The critic.
Top 10
Yeah.
movies, Steve.
I worked on a movie in the 80s called Rad, R-A-D. Every third review was Rad is bad.
Yeah. I remember lecturing at UCLA talking about the importance of a title because, as you guys know, in many towns and cities, people drive by the marquee and they see a title and they hope it'll bring it in. And I went on and on for a while, and some guy yelled out, "So you think The Damned is a good title?" And for some reason, I said in 1 second, "Why, you prefer The Boys in the Bund?" And,
What was that title on, Arthur? What was that title on your marquee in Boston that everybody thought it was on vacation or something?
no, it was my theater.
Oh, your theater.
It was Brief Vacation. Victoria De Sica, wonderful movie. Nobody
The
cared.
theater was closed.
Yeah.
Brief Vacation. You see, it had a little subtitle under your marquee saying, "But we're here."
I made him put down. It was Bennington, Vermont, and I made him put down De Sica's Brief Vacation. Wasn't sure that would work either.
The two stories I've got for is we had a theater that played repertory, and we had 2001: Space Odyssey. So in the flyer that went out with like 80 other titles for 8 weeks worth of films, or we used to play double features every day. The guy, they misspelled on the one misspell was Space Odyssey was SAPCE, which was obviously a typo. So anyway, so the thing goes to the movie, and you walk by the marquee, and there it is, 2001, a SAPS article, because he just followed the thing. But the best one I remember for the titles was the 10-plex at Copley Square. It's still there in Boston. Very small, 60 seats, 40 seats. They were like screening rooms. That was the whole concept of the theater. So the marquee was right over the door. You could actually touch the lettering. And so in order to put it up there, you couldn't have 3-word titles. You know, you had to have these short titles. So they shortened everything. So you go in and see, well, Syriana would have worked. And by the way, Syriana is one of the worst titles of the world. That would be on that.
Right up there with Argo.
Argo, I'd say, yeah, but Syriana is pretty bad. So anyway, I was there with Gary Brokaw and his wife, and Barbara and I were watching a thing called A Drugstore Cowboy. So on the marquee, it had drugstore. That was it, you know. And likewise, so I got sick of the movie. It was depressing, and I walked out. I'm walking to one screen to another, and I see one title is Joe's. You know, Joe's Diner would say Joe. Over here, Shirley's Heaven. It was Shirley. It was always one. And I go to a thing that says, have to go to the bathroom. It says men's room, just as men's. And I walk in. I was thinking I'm going to see a movie. You know, what's this movie? And there's a guy urinating in 3D. So
I thought you were going to say you went to the theater and it just said drugs and everybody was getting high inside.
What is the magic of one-word titles? Jaws.
It is magical. They say it just fits nicely on a marquee.
Yeah, one-word titles. Boy, I'll tell you.
Well, I worked at Columbia. Columbia in the 80s had a movie called Krull, Krull, which happened to be the name of a planet. But nobody went to see it. It's actually a good little fantasy.
Sounded like a roll.
Yeah, like Cruller. It does sound like a
Cruller. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
One of the great one-word titles.
I remember when I was in high school, a guy put up a huge thing for the movie Teacher's Pet, and he put in parentheses, "They do."
But bumped.
One word titles, one of the worst of all time would be Kaleidoscope, a pretty good movie too. Or two-word titles, love story, but short titles are always preferable with books as well, with anything.
I remember back in the day, there was a movie called The Incredibly Strange Creatures Who Did Something and Something and Something. It went on forever, and it was. But then there was Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Love, Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, I think.
Right. Great things overcome anything like that. Great movie, great book, and it overcomes titles. What is George Clooney's best movie that he ever made, in your opinion, Steve and Julian and Mike? Best movie.
Well, I would say my two favorites of his are Michael Clayton and Three Kings.
By far and away, Good Night and Good Luck for me.
Yeah, I'm with Julian
Number
on
one, I just think it's a great film. I really like The Descendants and Michael Clayton, so I'm taking 3.
Okay, I'll take 2. I'll say Ocean's 11, and also I will say Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
What's that last one?
Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Yes.
Arthur, yours.
Good Night, Good Luck. It's the best. One of the great movies it's my top 50 list. It's a great film. What a great cast in that movie too. Patricia Clarkson. Jesus, what a story that was.
Franklin Geller as Bill Paley. Fantastic.
And let's understand something. Not to get into politics, believe me, but that happened in the 50s. Yes, right.
Well, it takes place in the 50s.
I understand the subject. Yesterday, a producer on 60 Minutes quit because he was being told what to do by Paramount. Are we aware of that? Bill Owens.
Yes.
Bill Owens walked out. So that stuff still goes on, and it's relevant today. Maybe that's one of the reasons the show is doing so much business. A lot of relevance there in the Broadway show.
Well, I'd like to think it, but I think, Arthur, it's George Clooney in person.
We were talking earlier about whether George could play James Bond. If you look at his development list on IMDb Pro, George Clooney is set to produce the Matt Helm movies. Now, Matt Helm was a
Dean Martin.
Yeah, it was originally a terrific book series by Donald Hamilton, an American author. It was kind of like an American James Bond. And they ended up making it this kind of ridiculous Dean Martin vehicle for a series of goofy spy dramas, which were just a little bit more serious than the Three Stooges. So that whole character went into the can. But now the possibility of bringing back Matt Helm with George, I don't think George is too old to play Matt, but then again, maybe not, because George is now quietly 64 years old.
Yeah, but he looks like he's 45.
Well, especially with that black hair, right?
Yeah, especially. But I hope he goes back to the ginger or the gray or whatever it is.
No, exactly. But I think he would be a good Matt Helm if they decide to go that way. I think they're also developing something. Talk about inflation. There's a title of his in his development list called The $700 Billion Man. What was the original $6 million?
That was it, $6 million. But oh boy, times it. You know what $6 billion is worth today? I don't think I'd say 700 billion.
God.
George has been married how many times? Once?
Me?
No, he's twice. He was married to an actress.
He was married to Talia Balsam. He was married to Marty Balsam.
Right.
And Marty Balsam and Joyce Van Patten's daughter, who, by the way, co-starred on Mad Men, playing John Slattery's wife, and I believe is married to John Slattery.
Hey, Julian, here's one for you. Here's for all the guys. How many great movies was Marty Balsam in? A lot.
Yeah,
he's one of the 12 original Angry Men.
Yes.
Yeah.
Psycho. He was in all kinds of great movies. The Bedford Incident.
And he won the Academy Award for 1,000 Clowns, playing Jason Robot's brother.
And he's on screen for about 8 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's okay. People can have that happen. After
Here's
all,
a
Jane
here's a what if. Here's a what if, Julian. You take a script of 1,000 clowns and go to a studio today and see if you can get it made.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, no chance
Uniting good
whatsoever.
luck.
And it's great. It's a great little movie.
Yeah.
But there was another actor, a supporting actor along those lines, not with George Clooney, but a guy named Murray Hamilton was in all kinds of hit movies.
Oh, sure.
The
Including
Graduate,
Jaws.
Jaws.
The Mayor and Jaws. Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, to get ready for today's show, I ended up watching Burn After Reading for the first time, which is a
Oh,
Coen
I think
Brothers
that is
movie.
so funny, that movie.
It is this is Goofy George again. This is kind of a Goofy George. He's some kind of operative, not quite sure who he's working for. He does carry a gun, but he's constantly telling people, "I've never fired it in the line of duty." And it has probably the goofiest performance of Brad Pitt I've ever seen.
I just found it so much fun. I don't know, Arthur, did it do any business?
Which one, Julian?
Burn after reading?
Not that I know of.
Okay,
No.
I'll tell you right
No,
now
the
how well
answer.
it did. Burn
Well,
After Reading had a
that was-
$37 million budget, and its worldwide gross was 164. So this movie
Oh.
made money.
It did.
Listen, he
It-
made money with Syriana. He made his movies that we've talked about are moneymakers. That's why he's a movie star. They made money. They're profitable. Syriana, Three
By the
Kings,
way-
of course, was big.
By the way, in Burn After Reading, we have Frances McDormand, who I have to say does not glam up in movies generally. I mean, she's someone who seems to just be an everyday lady. I think her performance, which was acclaimed in Nomads, was it Nomads or Nomadland?
No, I think Nomad, but I may be wrong.
Nomads. She's very unglam, but I have to say, in Burn After Reading, which is quietly 17 years ago, she's adorable. She's very cute. She looks great, and it's one of her better roles.
I
you
can
also-
proudly tell you guys that my partner and I were original investors in Joel and Ethan Coen's first four movies: Blood Simple, Raising Arizona, Miller's Crossing, and Barton Fink. I got to see a good deal of Frances, who wound up marrying Joel. Frances is maybe 4'8". She's really minute. She's tiny. She is one of the greatest actresses I've ever seen in anything she's ever done. There's a thing on television, it was unbelievable. You look at it, it was like slow motion, like watching paint dry, but she was brilliant. Somebody come up with the name of it, please. It was a award-winning TV series. But she was great in Fargo. My God, she
Is
was
that the one that
incredible.
was on HBO?
I think so.
Yeah, that was terrific. But I didn't think it was like watching paint dry. I was fascinated.
Well, I don't mean that in that sense. Yes, I mean it was very
Yeah, she
slow
was
moving.
playing a real cold person, right?
Right. What a face.
Yeah.
She's got a great face, and she's a great
terrific.
actress.
And as you started to say, Fargo, she's magnificent.
Magnificent. It's one of the funniest roles I've ever seen, and just keeps kicking it. We have really digested a lot of Clooney today. There's a lot of things to discuss, and we didn't really talk much about his directing career, although his last movie he directed I thought was okay, but I felt like I'd seen it before. Did you guys see The Boys in the Boat?
I did.
You did.
Of
I
course.
thought it was well made.
I thought, and it was
Familiar.
worth being. It wasn't the most exciting movie in the world, but it was a good story, and also I think it deserved to be nominated, like it was for Best Picture. So it was. I thought it was great. We haven't even also dived in. He also owned a tequila company, or he did until 2018.
Well, we don't drink on this show, Mike. I'm sorry.
You
Well,
got
I
to.
drink egg creams. I drink egg creams. Does that count?
Yes, it does. Tequila.
Julian,
egg creams.
I'd like you to start an egg cream company tomorrow and sell it for $1 billion.
That's what he did.
I'll take 400,000, Steve.
Guys,
Being a West Coaster, I don't think I've ever had an egg cream.
Well, when you come to New York, I'll take you for one.
yes, you
Okay.
can make one in your home. You can make one in your home. There's no egg in it, by the way, Steve.
Yeah.
Guys, wanted to say, Boys in the Boat was made for a budget of $40 million. And you'd think it made money. It grossed more than I would have thought it did. It grossed $55 million. but it's a loser because
that is a loser, as we
cut
know.
that, 27.5, and you're losing a lot of money. But that was kind of, you liked it. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I thought it was, I'm also a Seattle person. So, it was the University of Washington. So, I was kind of, biased on that one.
But did you ever see Disclosure, which was shot in Seattle?
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
George also directed a very good period football movie called Leatherheads.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Was well done.
One of the first films with John Krasinski in it.
And the guys didn't wear those big plastic helmets in those days. They wore leather helmets, which were kind of not really very, very good for safety.
An old friend of mine named Herb Gluck wrote a book about the real story of Newt Rockne, Notre Dame, playing with the leather helmets and stuff. And the way he described that story, guys, was after a game, you go into the locker room, you think it was a World War I epic, but there was blood all over the place, and there were broken bones. And I mean, these guys played with no protective things. Hopefully, they were wearing jock straps, but it was a bloodbath.
We were talking about titles, and if I heard the title Leatherhead, I would think it was one of those crazed killers in those horror movies named Leatherhead.
I think there is a character named, or is it Leatherhead, Mike, in the Chainsaw movies?
Leatherface.
Leatherface.
I rest my case.
There you go.
Let's see if we can wrap this thing by going over the biggest thing about George Clooney, which is the fact that he is a movie star and one of the obvious biggest movie stars we have. If there's 5 movie stars in the business today, movie stars, who would they be? Steve, Julian, Mike?
Well, I have to say that The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, is a real movie star because his movies generally make a lot of money.
We'd have to say Brad Pitt, I would think.
Pitt. Leonardo DiCaprio is definitely a movie star.
Now, I guess because of what we've all said, even though he's only made movies that was successful as James Bond, would be Daniel Craig. But of course, it's a one thing. I don't think he's done
something. Well, a movie star is supposed to be able to put asses in the seats no matter what they're in.
That's right.
I don't know if Daniel Craig does that, but
I think Tom Cruise and Tom Hanks.
Tom Cruise is number one still.
Yeah, and Tom Hanks.
Before he took a swipe at that comic, I thought Will Smith was probably up there, but Will Smith's star has fallen a little bit.
Well, there's a guy named Kevin Hart who will bring people to the theater. Sure. And as far as the women are concerned, and you didn't mention Matt Damon. I think Matt Damon means something. Ben Affleck to an extent.
Well, we'll talk about
a very good director, by the way.
We'll talk about the women next time. We have come to the end of our show. We are going to turn everything over to our major domo, who I think we should promote to Colonel, Mr. Mike Faber.
Well, thank you, Steve. I do appreciate that. And I am applying to be the sexiest man in People magazine in the next couple of years. So
I'll vote for you, Mike. You'll get one vote at least.
That's my vote.
Two votes.
Your voice could win it.
Episode of the Tales from Hollywoodland podcast. Always remember, we couldn't do this without you. So we want to hear from you. Please write us anytime at talesfromhollywoodland@gmail.com. Remember, you can find our podcast wherever fine podcasts are found. And now you can even find us up on our YouTube channel. If you made it this far into the episode, why not subscribe and give us a thumbs up? Or if you're listening to us, please give us 5 stars. If you're into social media, why not check us out over on Instagram or Facebook? Before we get out of here, let's check with the guys and see what's happening this week on their podcast. Julian, who are you talking to this week?
This week is Paula Prentice, who burst onto the scene in Where the Boys Are, and she did the Parallax View, and she did Horizontal Lieutenant, a lot of movies, and a very interesting woman who married Richard Benjamin, and that marriage is probably close to 50 years now. So be nice to talk to her again.
That is awesome. Steve, what's going on Saturday night at the movies?
We're going to have Robert Mitchum night.
Ooh.
Those of you under 40, this was a major star in Hollywood for many years. His niece is coming on to discuss her uncle, and that's Cindy Mitchum as Bill. And we're excited to just digest, as we've done today with George Clooney, the life and times and films of Robert Mitchum.
Are you going to bring any reefers to this interview?
No, just like we don't drink on our show, there's no reefers on my show.
Ah,
all right,
man.
That would be, Julian, that would be reefer madness.
I certainly would. But Robert Mitchum, he was the man.
He was the king of dope, or at least I shouldn't say that. He just got nabbed a couple of times for it before it was popularized.
Yes.
Arthur, what's coming up next week?
Next week, we're going to have a great impressionist, a fellow named Josh Rosen. Several weeks ago, we had
Marilyn Michaels.
Marilyn Michaels was outstanding, doing some great impressions. And here's Josh Rosen, who probably does the greatest Woody Allen I've ever heard or seen. And he does others. And Josh is a very interesting guy. We're going to find out what got him to love Woody Allen so much. But he's going to be our guest.
That is awesome. That is awesome. On behalf of Steve, Arthur, and Julian, thanks again for listening. This is your producer and future most handsome man in America, Mike Faber. We'll see you here next time on Tales from Hollywoodland. Your Hollywood adventure starts right here. Calling all Whovians, dive into the time vortex with Earth Station Who, the podcast that celebrates the legacy, present, and future of Doctor Who.
From classic adventures with the First Doctor to thrilling stories of the 15th, we've got it all covered.
For lively discussions, geeky debates, the Whovian Geek Seat, and a whole lot of TARDIS talk.
On sea to your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to Earth Station Who, where every episode is a wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey good time.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping for the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.